lot of times when people hear that I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, their first reaction is like, oh, that sucks. Or your sports teams are bad. Always kind of follow it up with also a pastor's kid. That is always also met with kind of the same reaction, like, oh, I'm so sorry, like that's horrible. I never felt like it was a bad thing. I just know that I experienced a lot that was very traumatic. It shaped me into an adult that grew up fearful of being my own person. I was always afraid to get in the way of my parents' image. When I was 9, there was this moment that kind of changed the way that I viewed myself. I was sitting in my room, coloring, doodling, doing little 9-year-old things. She sat down on the floor with me and she goes, hey, I need you to know something. You have to be careful about what you post online. I thought at the moment that she was going to tell me about safety, but no, her words were, you have to be careful with what you post online because it looks back to me and your dad. That moment kind of like made me scared to really do anything against their image. It put this sort of fear in me that made me very hesitant on every choice that I made up until I would say maybe like this year. Even in high school, I would get invited to like someone's house. My first reaction would be, when things happen and I get in trouble, my parents are the ones that are gonna have to answer for all of it, and that could get them in trouble. I wouldn't want to do things that would interfere with my parents' ministry. Any type of events that I would, like any type of extracurriculars I would do at school, I always made sure were scheduled on days that my parents wouldn't have anything planned for the church. I didn't want to interfere with what they had going on. Like, I had so much respect and also fear for their jobs. It carried all throughout my adolescence and even now into my adulthood. After graduating from high school, I genuinely could not pick something that I wanted to do. I didn't want it to interfere with my parents' work. I didn't want it to be an embarrassment to them. Kind of needed to find this part of myself that was not linked to my parents. After graduating from high school, I took a year off. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. I had a lot of time to reflect on like me and my faith and just what it is that I wanted to represent as a human being. I had always had an interest in film, in the world of Hollywood, but I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so it's difficult to even think about joining something like that, something as grand as filmmaking. I got a pamphlet and it was this big FedEx package for Full Sail University. I just thought, what do I have to lose? All of a sudden, I was completely alone. There was no shadow of my parents. That's when I think that I really found not only in who I am as a filmmaker, but as a human being. I really honed in to what it is that I want to represent. Someone who is loving, someone who is kind, someone who, looks at people with no judgment. It's very unconditional. Because I've grown up in the environment that I have, I know how I don't want to treat people, and I know how I do want to treat people. I'm very thankful to my parents because they showed me how to love people. People look at me and go, oh, well, you're a pastor's kid, you're automatically super judgmental. No, I want to be just me.